the big story we're tracking this evening. A day ahead of Independence Day celebrations, viewers, protests broke out over Savarkar's posters in a Shivamogga mall. There has been no end to these protests ever since. It started with Shivamogga, spread to Mangaluru, Chikmagaluru, Timakuru, and slowly these protests began to travel beyond Karnataka. For example, in Kerala's Malappuram, the Savarkar controversy blasted to an extent that a child dressed as Savarkar for an Independence Day procession from his school met with protests from both the Youth Congress and the IUML. In fact, just a couple of minutes ago, we picked up visuals of how the student wing of IUML locked some of the teachers from that very school inside the classrooms while escalating their protests. So those are the kind of scenes we're essentially picking up from Kerala as well. So from Kerala to Karnataka, the Savarkar phobia is slowly taking over. Here's up a reaction, and then we open this up with our guests.
Kiyavaram High Secondary School in Sadhana Paradile, Veer Savarkar, Chigonde, രാഷ്ട്രീയപരമായിട്ടുള്ള നേട്ടത്തിന് വേണ്ടി മുതലെടുപ്പിന് വേണ്ടി നടത്തിയ ഒരു അധ്യാപകന് ഈ സ്കൂളിലുണ്ട്. ആ അധ്യാപകനെതിരെ ശക്തമായിട്ടുള്ള നടപടി തീർച്ചയായിട്ടും ഈ സ്കൂളിൻ്റെ ഭാഗത്തുനിന്ന് ഉണ്ടാവണമെന്ന് ആവശ്യപ്പെട്ടുകൊണ്ടാണ് ഞങ്ങൾ ഇന്ന് ഈ സ്കൂളിൽ എത്തിയത്. പക്ഷേ നിർഭാഗ്യവശാൽ അത്തരത്തിലുള്ള നടപടിയുടെ കുറിച്ചും ഇവിടുത്തെ അഡ്മിനിസ്ട്രേറ്റേഴ്സോ അല്ലെങ്കിൽ PTA ഭാരവാഹികളോ ഇതിനെക്കുറിച്ച് യാതൊരു വിധത്തിലുള്ള ഉത്തരവും പറയുന്നില്ല. അവർ പറയുന്നത് നടപടികൾ ഉണ്ടാവും. ഞങ്ങളുടെ മുകളിലുള്ള DD അടക്കമുള്ള ആളുകൾക്ക് ഞങ്ങൾ ഇതിൻ്റെ റിപ്പോർട്ട് സമർപ്പിച്ചിട്ടുണ്ട്. അതിനുശേഷം മാത്രമേ നമുക്ക് എന്തെങ്കിലും തീരുമാനങ്ങൾ എടുക്കാൻ കഴിയുമെന്നാണ് പറയുന്നത്. ഇത്രമാത്രം ഗൗരവമുള്ള ഒരു വിഷയം, ഈ ഇന്ത്യയുടെ മഹാത്മാജിയുടെ കൊലപാതകിയായിട്ടുള്ള VD സവർക്കർ ഈ 75ഓളം ആളുകൾ മാത്രം പങ്കെടുക്കേണ്ട ഈ ഒരു സ്വാതന്ത്ര്യ സമര റാലിയിൽ എങ്ങനെ ഈ പേര് വന്നു?
Let's open this up with our guest joining us this evening. We have Mohan Krishna, spokesperson of the BJP. Also with us is Khaleeq Ur Rehman, a TRS leader. Also Gokul Chandran, a political analyst, is with us on this broadcast. If I could begin with you, Mr. Chandran, and then I'll go across to other representatives from other political parties. Now, it's been more than 5 decades since Vinayak Damodar Savarkar passed away, but you know, his legacy continues to be fiercely debated still. But what's utmost shocking is, at this point in time, just a minute ago, we put out visuals of how, you know, the teachers from that very school wherein a child could be seen dressed as Savarkar, the teachers eventually came out with reactions that, you know, we realized this back in the green room and we eventually scrapped Savarkar's name from the board, which spoke of several freedom fighters. We changed, you know, the outfit of that very student. And those very teachers, minutes ago we put out those visuals, were locked up inside classrooms by AIUML workers, IUML workers. Such is the hate.
Yeah, good evening. See, what is the legacy of Savarkar we are talking about? Does he have a legacy that can be celebrated at this moment of time? No. Any nationalistic person, any nationalistic movement who has love towards his nation will oppose the name of Savarkar, or any kid or any adult who is dressed up as Savarkar. Savarkar is an evil force that patriotic India needs to avoid, and he should never be celebrated. So the nationalistic forces, of course, will oppose tooth and nail anyone who is glorifying Savarkar or who is trying to prop up Savarkar, who remained a traitor, and he has no right or no role to be part of our history. So the BJP and RSS who are now trying to push Savarkar into the mainstream,
and that's what the debate from the longest time has been. Several especially from the opposition, have refused to acknowledge Savarkar as a freedom fighter, and I do see Rahul Ishwar also raising his finger. So quickly going to take in a word from him as we introduce him as well. He's with us on this panel. Rahul Ishwar, what do you make of what Mr. Chandran just said?
Please take the position of what Mahatma Gandhi did. Mahatma Gandhi respected Savarkar. Veer Savarkar was in jail for you and me, for our nation, for more than 4,000 days. He spent nearly or more than 4,000 days in jail under very tough conditions. And Mahatma Gandhi was an admirer of Savarkar. Indira Gandhi called Savarkar as a brave son of India. So do you mean to say that Mahatma Gandhi was not nationalistic? Indira Gandhi was not nationalistic? Right now, in order to play to some certain gallery, our left liberal friends are demonizing Savarkar. You can disagree with Veer Savarkar in 1 or 2 points. You can debate. At the same point
And Rahul Ishwar, just to add to what you're saying, we're putting out that graphic, how Mahatma Gandhi too hailed Veer Savarkar. Mr. Chandran, you can perhaps take a look at the statements made by Mahatma Gandhi back then, and I'd like a comment from Khaleeq Ur Rehman as well. And I'm going to quote what Mahatma Gandhi had said. As per some historians and what they've stated, Vinayak Savarkar is a faithful son of Bharat, said Mahatma Gandhi. Also said he's clever, brave, and frankly a revolutionary. Those are his words, not mine. Mr. Rehman.
Yeah, quickly to
whatever is happening today, especially in Karnataka, it is all politically motivated. It is all just a run-up before the elections, what I could see. It is not about the contribution of Savarkar, or it is not about the contribution of Tipu Sultan, whose contribution is less, whose contribution is more. I think after 75 years of independence, we should not be sitting here and talking about it, because everything is very well recorded in the history. And if you go back and revisit our history books, we will get the complete information from that. But whatever is happening, all this violence, definitely because there is no place of violence, in our country, and this is definitely what I see is a run-up before the elections in Karnataka, just in order to polarization. This is a politics of the polarization, because the BJP's government is there in Karnataka, and why everything is starting from Karnataka.
Okay, so you're saying that the ongoing controversy around Savarkar versus Tipu Sultan, perhaps in this very case, surrounds the very fact that we're just a few months away from elections in Karnataka. But what about Kerala? Look at what happened in Mallapuram. I mean, a child was not allowed to, be dressed as Veer Savarkar. That's the kind of hate that we're really talking about. Youth Congress and the IUML both took to streets to protest against this very school procession.
Kerala, we have seen, last few months, we have been seeing the kind of the rallies and even the, small little boys holding, the flags and marching. So this is something, the law and order and our agencies have to be really alert on this, because this can't happen,
So this should not happen. Mr. Rehman, let me go across to Mohan Krishna as well. He's not spoken still, and most of these incidents have come to light from Karnataka. Mr. Krishna, why is this happening? It's just that we're a few months away from elections in Karnataka. But the Savarkar controversy, especially if we talk about Karnataka, every year talk about Independence Day, talk about Republic Day, talk about a time wherein celebrations are taking place around Veer Savarkar. We see that this kind of opposition come in, but it becomes extremely violent, starts taking a violent turn. That's when the problem begins.
Convenient Congress always has written the history and made the people to understand the history in such a way that those people, apart from the Congress movement, those who have participated in the freedom struggle, have been excluded and expunged from the history. For many reasons, for them to say today, they have to answer to the people today why they have done so. There is today I want to tell you something, Mr. Gokul Chandran. If I have to ask anybody, what did Savarkar do, is it possible to ask? No. Then, whatever you say, is it the history? No, I don't think so. They are contradictory. You were always talking about appeasement politics.
Everything is recorded.
No, Mr. Gokul Chandran, please listen to me. Congress is going for appeasement politics. They want the issue. Savarkar is a soft target, Kritsween. For them, the target is basically Hinduism and Hindutva. Let me tell you, Swami Vivekananda survived for 32 years. He is a great lead. He is acknowledged as a great leader, not only by Hindus, by everybody in this world.
Okay, so that's a question for Mr. Chandran. A quick rebuttal from Mr. Chandran, because I'm afraid I don't have as much time. But Mr. Chandran, like Mr. Mohan Krishna pointed out, there are a couple of things that have been stated. If we go by history, if we talk about several who've written books on Veer Savarkar, who've also spoken of how he's been jailed for 14 years for sedition by British, offered to trade own freedom for others. In 2013, we saw how he led a hunger strike in Kalapani. So that's the kind of sentiment we've seen around Veer Savarkar, especially by some of the right-wing groups and by the BJP. Now, if the Congress or some of the other political parties are free to celebrate their freedom fighters, what is wrong with a certain people celebrating Savarkar? Why make it so violent and aggressive to an extent that, there is someone who's being attacked by a knife, who's being stabbed at for supporting that particular ideology?
Okay, I'll quickly reply to that. Mr. Mohan Krishna and Rahul Ishwar was talking about appeasement. You must remember Mr. Nehru, Mr. Gandhi and most of our freedom fighters are Hindus. They lived and died as Hindus and nobody is opposing them. So it is not about being a Hindu.
Freedom fighters
can never be a
Hindu. They are Congress
a
movement people.
Who has tried his own nation can never
Your
be a
Congress
Hindu.
movement people
And
are the freedom fighters.
The books, what has been written?
You mean to say there is nobody else?
Written is well recorded. His mercy petition,
Mr. Gokul Chandran, please you have to make
out of jail, in which movement he has participated, and before
it was a Congress movement.
Why he went
it was
to jail?
a Congress movement.
What
this is not Indian National Congress.
But there is a larger problem here, Mr. Chandran. There are school teachers, because of the fear around, a student perhaps looking like Veer Savarkar, Vinayak Damodar Savarkar, were forced to remove the sash which labelled him as Savarkar. That's the fear, that's the mindset that we're talking about. A quick comment coming in from Rahul Ishwar, then we need to wrap this up. Quick 30 seconds, yeah.
Dear Mr. Gokul, it is not Mr. Gandhi but Mahatma Gandhi, and that Mahatma Gandhi, our father of the nation, respected Savarkar. They diverged on points, they differed on points, but they put a mutual respect towards Savarkar. See, there are various states of ideology in every nation. We need to learn to respect all the spectrums, whether it is center right or center left. And Savarkarji belongs to a nationalistic spectrum, a patriotic spectrum. So
we've heard all the sides, but yes, this is a concerning piece of news given that it's going out of hand in certain parts of Karnataka. It's reached Kerala as well. Now, I'm going to have to leave it at that. Mohan Krishna, Rahul Ishwar, Khaleeq Ur Rehman and Gokul Chandran, thank you for speaking to us here on Times Now.